Shalom, love and blessings, Yahites family of Yah. This is your brother Judah, Yahites Ministries. And today, this is going to be a teaching from the website, Are You a Christian or a Disciple? You can find this at yahites.org. That's YAHITES.org. And the article will be there under that heading, and you can see the thumbnail. So let's get started. Are you a Christian or a disciple? God told me not to call myself a Christian. In 1994, before the advent of Google, YouTube, and the worldwide usage of the World Wide Web, Yah God spoke those words to me. Little did I know how such a seemingly simple and personal instruction would not only affect me, but my house and many multitudes. I could use this article teaching to do a deep dive into all the words and meaning behind these words, the labels that we use to identify ourselves. Instead, I want you to take time and consider how you identify yourself and why. But most importantly, what is the will of Yah God for you? How does He want you to identify yourself as a Christian or a disciple? We now live in an era wherein our identity, how we identify ourselves, must be recognized and acknowledged and respected by everyone, regardless of observable facts and truth. However, the erosion of the identity and rights of Christians is intensifying worldwide. Is this a totally negative thing, or is this an opportunity to reassess our identity and position ourselves on the strong foundation of the rock of our salvation? Can you use this to reassess the doctrinal structure that you live in? The Apostle Paul stated, "Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." And that's taken from Romans 12, verses 1 and 2. Do not call yourself a Christian. When I was first given this instruction, I did not question our Father in heaven. I simply obeyed. In the Holy Scriptures, Christian appears only 3 times. In Acts 11, it states, "And when he had found him, he brought him unto Antioch. And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church and taught much people. And the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch." In Acts 26, "Then Agrippa said unto Paul, Almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian." And in 1 Peter 4, it says, "Yet if any man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God on this behalf." Now, there is a breakdown of the word Christian from the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible, which you can see here on the website. And so you can read that at your leisure, because it is a little bit lengthy. But needless to say, the term Christian was a name that the disciples were called by the unbelievers. We are called by the name of our Father in heaven, hence the name Yahites. Quick question. Did your enemies give you your personal name? Are you his disciple? And remember, all blue links are able to be clicked and they will open something else. Like the Yahites there will open the article on where the name Ya'ites came from and how it came to be. So are you his disciple? In John chapter 8, he records Yahushua, Jesus, saying, if you continue in my word, then are you my disciples indeed. There are two key things to note in what Yahushua, aka Jesus, said here. Firstly, nearly every interpretation uses the exact same word of disciple. Take a look. And again on the screen you will see there's a list of Bible translations, and every one of them, except one, uses the word disciple. Only the HNV, the Hebrew Names Version of the Bible, states the Hebrew word for disciple, which is Talmidim. Talmidim is the Hebrew plural word for disciples, derived from the root limud, meaning instructed. It refers to individuals who not only study under a teacher or rabbi, but seek to become like them in character, actions, and purpose. Unlike a student focused on acquiring knowledge, a Talmid, which is a singular form, aims to fully identify with and imitate their rabbi in every aspect of life. Key characteristics of a Talmid. Lifestyle imitation. A Talmid, or disciple, doesn't just learn what the rabbi knows. They strive to become like the rabbi, mirroring their behavior, values, and decisions. Close proximity. Talmidim, disciples, lived with their rabbi, often following them everywhere, even into private moments, to observe and internalize their way of life. Voluntary commitment. The role required a radical life change, leaving family and home to dedicate oneself entirely to the rabbi's teachings and example. Intentional training. The relationship was intense and personal, rooted in mentorship, observation, and hands-on learning. So let's take a look at the historical and biblical context. The term appears once in the Hebrew Bible, in 1 Chronicles 25:8, where it refers to Levitical singers in training, teacher as well as pupil, highlighting a structured intergenerational model of instruction. It says, and they cast lots for their duty, the small as well as the great, the teacher with the student. In the time of Yahushua, aka Jesus, rabbis had Talmidim, disciples, and he uniquely invited people to follow him, calling them not just students, but disciples committed to become like him. Jesus's Talmidim, his disciples, were expected to be with him, as we see in Mark chapter 3, to learn from him directly and indirectly, and later be sent out to teach and heal, empowered by his authority. It says there in Mark 3, then he appointed 12, that they might be with him and that he might send them out to preach. Being a Talmidim, or a disciple, requires believers back then and now to move beyond passive faith or mere belief to a life of discipleship, living, loving, suffering, and serving as Yahushua, aka Jesus, did. In essence, a Talmid or disciple is not a student. A Talmid disciple is a life-transformed follower who seeks to be indistinguishable from their rabbi in purpose, action, and identity. Yahushua, Jesus said, a disciple is not above his teacher. The goal is not just to know him, but to become like him. In the New Testament, the word used is the Greek word matetes, which means the same thing as talmidim. In Strong's definition, we see that matetes means a learner or a pupil or a disciple. Now, can you guess how many times that word is used in comparison to the 3 times that Christian is used? It is used 263 times. A stark difference, wouldn't you say? Do you remember that I said earlier that there were 2 key things to note from John chapter 8 and verse 31, where Jesus, Yahushua, said to those Jews who believed in him, "If you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed." Well, the second thing is that to be a disciple, you must continue, abide, remain, endure in his word, in his teaching, his doctrine, his decrees, his mandate, his order. The requirements to be a disciple are set firmly by Yahushua, aka Jesus. On the contrary, the requirements on being a Christian are different with every denomination. Now, this makes the Great Commission very clear. Go ye therefore and teach, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost. Christ and the apostles focused on making disciples, not Christians. The question you should ask yourself is, what are you? A Christian or a disciple of Yahushua, aka Jesus? P.S. Now that you have a basic understanding of what it takes to be a disciple, you can understand why the many who say to him, who say to Yahushua, who say to Jesus, "Lord, Lord," will be rejected because he never knew them, because they worked iniquity or compromise. They never remained, continued, obeyed, or abode in his teachings, in his instructions, in his word, which we know as the apostles' doctrine. Shalom, love and blessings, beloved.